Hey everybody, this is Kendall from the Middle. You can see the front of my face. That is not drawn by an artiste for the first time. There's a reason for that, and that is because we are all at home, staying safe and trying to protect other people, as we've been told to do. So you all are also probably doing the same thing and in the same boat. So this is how we're doing our little podcast. I just touched my face, and I shouldn't have done that.
He's got the corona.
Hey, Corey, can I have some of that?
Yeah, here.
All right. Oh, thanks, buddy.
Just dripped all over my computer.
Here we go. All right. Elijah Craig is taking care of it for me.
You gotta do a little. Yeah, there you go.
And I smell like corn. So I'm here with Corey and Dylan. And we're just having fun. This is distracting because I'm looking at the screen, but I'm not looking at the camera, so I don't know. This is probably weird for you.
Just always look straight ahead.
Just always look straight ahead. But then I can't. But then it's not like I'm talking to you guys. I'm talking at a little green light.
Yeah, I hear you.
But no, episode 43 from the Middle. Here we are. I'm sure that we have plenty of updates for you.
Indeed.
And this is obviously the first time that we're trying to do a podcast in this manner. So there might be pops and clicks, and I know that the audio is going to be much different from what you're used to. But hey, that's the way it is. And in March of 2020. So
yeah.
Welcome.
If this was a serialized TV show, this would be the beginning of the self-quarantine arc from the Middle. So here we are, all self-quarantined and excited to roll.
Here we are at 10:08 on March 23rd, which is a Monday, and our governor has said that 11:30 tonight is the official stay-at-home order start time. So we are all told to stay in our house unless you have to go get food for your family. I mean, I don't know what the list of exceptions are. But yeah, it's getting pretty serious. How are you all doing?
Look, if you could remove the whole deadly virus out of this, this has been wonderful. I don't know. Don't go outside. Well, you can go outside, but stay away from people. Go outside, stay away from people. This is wonderful. I'm having the time of my life.
There's that meme going around that was like, this is me realizing that that what I've been doing my entire life is what people are now calling social distancing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's definitely where I am.
And to their credit, they're trying to rewrite it a little bit by saying, well, it's not really social distancing, it's physical distancing. So you can still go to a park, but don't, try to keep some space between you and other people and whatever. Go for a walk.
Don't socialize.
Well, you can yell at them from across the park.
Yeah.
Just roll a can of their favorite soda about 12 feet away to them, and you can crack it open and share a soda from across the park.
As long as they can wipe it down first.
That's true.
Diet whatever.
Fresca.
But so it's really gone on for just over a week now. About a week ago and some days is when it really started to escalate, just for the purposes of context. Not that everybody that listens to us doesn't already get that, but for the purposes of posterity, just so we're painting the scene a little bit.
Right.
Where were you guys when everything was sort of hitting the fan? And just give us the updates on how it's been going for each of you the last week and how your families are doing and all of the things.
Go for it, Dylan.
All right. So for me, it all started, I think, on Thursday, the 12th or 13th or 14th, somewhere in there of March, mid-March. So I told my boss, hey, it's a little dicey. Things are starting to escalate a little bit. I'm going to work from home tomorrow, which was Friday at that point. And then they officially announced that Friday that it was work from home for at least 3 weeks, which just got pushed back another 10 days. So this is going great so far. and couldn't have been more excited. But really, I don't know for you guys. I think it really started to feel big, if I'm being serious for just a minute. Like some of the NBA games, like the NBA game that got postponed, and then all the sports sort of like, well, we're going to have March Madness, but no fans. And then March Madness got canceled. And that's when it was like, whoa, this is how they're making some serious money, and they're willing to cancel the whole tournament. And so, in all seriousness, that was when it kind of it got a little more serious. And I actually watched, we just gave out the MIDI award for Joe Rogan Experience, and he had on an infectious disease expert. I think his name was Michael Osterholm or something like that. You can go back and check out the episode. But so I watched like the 15-minute snippet of him, and I wasn't, I think everyone's kind of painting people into two categories, as we often like to do. Like, you're either blowing this off or you're freaking out. And it was sort of like, I was a little cautious going into that. And then I watched that and I was like, okay, we just need to take this seriously. Like, this is a thing we actually just need to listen to the medical experts and do what they're telling us and try to not go out if we don't need to. And so that was, I think, when it got a little more serious. My wife and I watched that kind of clip together, 15 minutes or so of Joe Rogan Experience and Michael Osterholm. And I had just gotten a bunch of groceries like that Thursday before I started work from home. So like we had plenty of food. So there was no real like concern there. I know some people were starting to freak out a little bit about groceries or food or whatever. But overall, I think it's been fine. And I think Corey, our dad, texted and asked how we were doing. And I said, yeah, wife's good. Daughter is unfazed. She's 2. She doesn't know any different. So like I said, if anything, we've got all our favorite foods and I'm home full time right now. So she's cloud 9. She's fine. So yeah, overall, everyone's good. But it is funny seeing people, we're doing all these kind of extra conference calls and stuff with video that we wouldn't normally do at work, just to kind of give people a chance to interact. And it's funny, some folks having this kind of cabin fevery reaction, and I'm like, I'm loving this. I don't know what you guys like. Oh, I just need to get out. I need to go to a rest, and I'm like, I'm fine. This is awesome. I don't need to get out. I don't feel the need to show up to the office. But I realize most people aren't like me, and I'm weird. So that's a little bit from my point of view. But go ahead, guys.
So it's interesting you brought it there, because like as introverted as I am and tend to be, I'm and as much as I love to stay at home, I also, like, if I don't leave the house once a day, I start going a little nuts. Now for me, it's just that, like, I need to be in a different atmosphere for a while is what it has nothing to do with the people. Like, I could be around my wife and my kids all day, especially my wife. It has nothing to do with them, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with wanting to be with other people, because that's never true. So that's where I say, like, the social distancing, like going out and doing something, but make sure that you stay away from others. That I don't have a problem with, the staying away from others. But like, I need to go walk around, even if I don't buy anything. I need to go walk around Target for a minute, or even sometimes I just get out and drive around for a while and come back. But so that kind of gets to me. Like, I have this extra feeling of man, I can't go walk around a store right now, and that freaks me out a little bit. So I'm kind of on that. That's kind of where I am personally. I do feel a little stuck and stir crazy. But it is what it is. My wife is, she works for a lab at a hospital, so she's still, not only is she working, but she's working right now. Like, it's, she's the director of the clinical lab, which is mostly administrative and research and creating tests and that kind of thing. Not a whole lot of like bench work kind of stuff. But she has been, for the past week, she's been training herself to do the bench work stuff. So she's been down in the lab doing that kind of thing, learning those things, because the fear is, in the medical field, is something sweeps through the hospital,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden, like, your lab isn't staffed, and so like everybody, including her, are learning how to do that work. Um, so that's what she's been doing. It's meant longer days for her, earlier mornings, that sort of thing, and then also the obvious, like, she's hanging out in a hospital all day.
Yeah.
So there's that little extra bit of anxiety for me. It doesn't seem to bother her that much, but though she has mentioned it. But for me, I have that thought of like, man, my wife is there right now. No, she's not. She's in the lab. She's not seeing patients or anything of that nature. So as far as that's concerned, she's probably among the least susceptible people in that hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's enough that she's in the building.
Yeah.
So that, and the kids, they're 4 and 5, and they don't care.
That's fine.
So that's where we are. Corey's story is possibly a bit more interesting than ours.
No, I mean, yeah. So I was scheduled to leave for Sydney the week before things really escalated, and the writing was on the wall that, you know, we don't really know how serious everybody's taking this, but we checked in. There was supposed to be 500 delegates at this big business function in Sydney, and the prime minister was going to be there, and so my company checked with him through his intermediary, whatever, and he was like, yeah, we're still having it. And so my boss checked in with me, and she's like, are you okay to go? And I'm like, I wasn't even, my first response to her was, I've never been to Sydney. Like, I wasn't even considering the weight of all this.
Yeah.
So the conference was on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. I thought it was going to go through Thursday, so I ended up with a free day on the back end. And that Thursday is when things were really starting to escalate. That entire time, Sherry was very nervous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were nervous for you.
Yeah, she was starting to get really concerned, and everybody was asking her how I was doing, and I think that made her even more anxious.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized in Sydney how bad it was. That free day that I had that Thursday, I was exhausted from, I had been there since Saturday. So I had been there Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5 full days already. Excuse me. And then I heard that Trump was going to get on and do a press conference, and they were sort of speculating what he was scheduled to talk about. And one of the things was banning travel. And now I'm going like, am I going to get home? Like, what's going on? So you're sort of twiddling your thumbs in a hotel room, wishing your flight was that day instead of the next day.
Yeah.
And so he comes on and he does his first thing. And this was, if people don't remember, up until that point, and not to get political, he had sort of been saying, this is an exaggeration. This isn't as serious as they're saying. This was the first time where he was like, this is a serious issue. And so he was finally starting to own those pieces of it. So I'm in my hotel room, literally on the other side of the world going, and then his press conference stops. And I kid you not, the very next thing CNN reports is that Tom Hanks and his wife are in Australia with coronavirus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
And you're thinking, if this thing can take the best of us, it can take any of us.
Certainly going to take. Certainly going to take me. And some
Rita
comedians
Wilson has not done anything to anybody.
Exactly. Some comedians I was listening to at the time said, like, I wish that the symptoms of this were that half of your face turned yellow, so that you for sure knew that you had it. Because I was like, every little tickle in my throat, I'm like, that's it, I've got the corona. So here I am in Sydney with Tom Hanks, and he has it. And long story short, everything worked out fine. And I almost hate that colored so much of my time there, because it really was one of the best work trips that I've ever had, and had a lot of fun. But it was a little scary for a minute there. Kind of funny story. So on my way back, Sherry was checking in every 5 minutes on my travel day back. Like, are you at the airport? Have you made it through security? Like, is your flight on time? So you fly through the night, and I got back to the States. I landed at LAX at 6 in the morning on that Friday. Right when I got to customs, to U.S. Customs, Sherry said, I just got in line at Kroger. So, and things are getting bad here. And she said, this line is crazy. I made it through U.S. Customs faster than she made it through the line at Kroger.
I bet they weren't doing single file, were they?
In Sunbury, Ohio, a little village, and like 5 international flights had just come in at 6 a.m. in LAX, and I still made it through customs faster than she made it through the Kroger line. So then it was this issue of like, even then, I don't think no one was required to stay home. They were just making recommendations. Because I had traveled internationally, now I'm getting home realizing how serious it is, going, well, what's the responsible thing for me to do here? Like, I've just traveled internationally, been around all kinds of folks.
Yeah. Who knows who were on the planes, right?
Well, and for most people, like, Australia and China might as well be 20 miles apart. Like, they just know it's the other side of the world. So, like, you just got on a plane that could have had, you know, all kinds of people that were flying around the region that, you know, when you might have had nobody from Asia on your flight, but we don't know that.
There was a lot of people from Asia on my flight. So anyways, so now I'm going, like, first of all, the level of seriousness is climbing in my mind, of recognizing as I come home how serious it's, because in Sydney, there was a handful of people wearing masks, but like, the streets were packed, the sidewalks were packed, restaurants were packed. We hung out next to the Sydney Opera House. There's this opera bar where you can literally sit right on the water. You see, there's live music, people are out and about, like nothing's going on. So the first thing is I'm recognizing how serious it is here. And then the other piece of it is like, wait a minute, as I'm driving home from Columbus Airport back to my house going, what's the responsible thing for me to do now? Because what they're saying is, if you've just traveled internationally, to stay in your house for 14 days. This is before anybody's even really talking about mandatory quarantines. They're just saying, you know, self-quarantine for 14 days if you've traveled. And I'm like, do I really have to stay in my house for? So it was so bizarre. And then to get back, and everything is pretty serious. And I think more people were like, I don't know, I think the international travel part freaked people out.
Well, I know from my point of view, I was texting you, Corey, and then our mother. You were flying back from Australia. Mom had just gotten back from a Caribbean cruise where they were all these other places, and they're saying the issue with cruises, much like airplanes, all the air and everything's just circulated inside. So, you know, she's like, hey, I want to come visit because whatever. And I'm like,
or don't at all.
And they had been, like, for their business, they had been to a couple different, like, expos after they got back on the cruise. And I'm just like, you've been around tons of people. Well, let's just hold off for a little bit. As much as I would enjoy company, it was like, yeah, maybe let's just wait.
Yeah.
Well, then you're just inundated with information that is on polar opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, right before I left, I asked my dentist friend if I could have some masks, some surgical masks. And then moments after he brings them over to my house, somebody shares a Forbes article that basically says masks don't do any good. It doesn't matter if you have a mask on or not. It's really for the people that have it to keep them from coughing and sneezing on others. And this was like Forbes saying it. And then they shared a tweet from the CDC or from the Surgeon General that said, people, stop buying masks. They don't do any good anyway, and you're just panic buying them and preventing medical people from getting them. So it's like, okay, so do masks help me or do masks not? It was crazy.
It's funny because the only explanation, like actual explanation for they don't work, was that all these people that are getting germs on themselves keep touching the masks that aren't sick to make sure that they're straight or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're getting germs all over their face trying to keep the mask straight, because they're not used to wearing it. And so they're like, it's worse for you to wear it and keep messing with it than it is to just not wear it and don't touch your face.
Exactly.
It's wild. It's wild.
So, so anyway, all since then, so it was, it's been, so that was last Friday. So it's been a week and some change now. And I've been out of the house once. I got out on Sunday and drove around a little bit and listened to some podcasts. And it was a really sunny day here. And so put the sunroof down and just enjoyed that. But I wouldn't say cabin fever. It is certainly good to see you guys and interact with you guys, even via Zoom. So that's been good. But yeah, so crazy what's going on. It's a whole new world out there. Unprecedented.
I can't wait for when all of this is over and we all go back to our normal lives and everyone has forgotten how to interact with other human beings in society. Yeah. There's going to be so many awkward pauses and interruptions and stutters because we don't remember how to talk to people anymore. It's going to be great.
And there's a piece of this, and I hate to say this because I know it's very serious for a certain percentage of our population, people that are older and have other underlying health issues, but like there's a piece of this that I hope we remember because this feels like a much healthier pace of life. Like we're having dinner around the table, we're playing board games together, our kids are being creative, they're coming up with new games and activities for one another. I'm reading, like we don't feel the need to fill our calendars with social stuff just to have a full, like there's a piece of this that I hope, and to see how society is sort of forgetting their, not to sound Pollyanna here, but like society is kind of coming together in some ways, which is encouraging to see, and helping each other out and recognizing, oh, me being better is dependent upon you and you being better is dependent on me. And we're all kind of interconnected. And yeah. I hope we remember that stuff and don't only do it in times of pandemics and crisis.
Amen to that, man. I was like the other day, a couple of days ago, I was driving home and I counted kind of going up the main boulevard of like a half mile long toward our house. And I counted 4 different families that were out in the middle of the day going for a walk with their teenage children. And that's the part that really struck me. Like, I don't think I have ever seen that. I see families going on walks. I see young couples taking their young kids on walks. I see that. I don't think I had ever seen parents with their teenage child going on a walk together. I don't think I'd ever seen that. Yeah. And I did, and it was good. And at that moment, like, there's been a lot of little moments like that have like just popped up in my heart and said, look, there's something good happening here because of this. And then you read about people stabbing people over toilet paper. And you realize that no, this is hell, and
except my little paradise over here where I don't have to leave my house.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But you're exactly right. There's like little lessons that I hope we don't forget. And there's some good things. I hope that society on the whole is able to kind of reprioritize some things here. And like you said, Corey, recognize how we're all interconnected. Just like, well, in Ohio, when we're discussing things such as essential employees, and then you start going through that list, and there's things that you don't realize, like whole supply chains, and you realize just how many people are essential, have essential jobs. And like not only is it like the hospitals and the gas stations and the grocery stores, but it's the truck drivers, it's the warehouses, yep. It's the salespeople, it's the manufacturing of the products, the steel supply that's creating whatever it is, like packaging material and all of that. Like the supply chain is absolutely massive. And that for me is the best way of looking at sort of like how we're all intertwined and interconnected. and how we really cannot do this without each other.
Yeah.
And that's good and important. It's been nice to kind of get a little bit of a break from the from the politics and things, although that has started to creep its way back in, um, which is unfortunate. But no, yeah, there has certainly been good that I've seen that would not have happened if
Yeah.
it wasn't for this.
And the other layer that I almost feel guilty that I feel, but if we're just, since it's just us girls, I feel like there's this really interesting layer of like people observation and just watching how the world reacts. Like, again, I know it's serious. I know there are people on the front lines. I know that it really does affect, and people are dying. I get that it's a very serious thing. Also, just to see the way that people react, like you were saying, these two camps kind of form. Everything from, this is a Democratic hoax, it's not real, this is all just fake news, to people I know buying guns and stockpiling canned goods and stuff in their basement, and doomsday preppers and everything in between. I mean, if you, we like to talk about observational humor and socio-political kind of, social just commentary, and that people are funny. I mean, there's a lot to behold right now.
I mean, I saw one post already from a friend who was like, I bet all the people making fun of us and calling us preppers sure feel stupid right about now. And I'm just like, no, actually, I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay.
Oh, and then there's things you don't even think about. Like, somebody brought up to me the other day, like, think about high school and college seniors, like, who left school under the, understanding that this was just a temporary thing, and they're never going to walk the halls with their classmates again, or have a graduation, or like college seniors, like things you didn't think. Athletes who this was their last year on their college team, who stayed, who could have gone to the NBA. Not that they'd be playing there either, but that's just the crazy things that you don't even think about, because we're all just in sort of like, not literal survival mode, kind of survival mode, but like there are bigger things to worry about right now. And then you realize all those other secondary and tertiary layers of like, whoa, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You both had mentioned, like, there's obviously some good coming out of that, out of all of it. The number of businesses and places, as you talked about, as schools are shutting down, that are donating like food and meals to kids that would have been in school that couldn't get a meal otherwise. And it was funny. I think I might have been at Kroger one of the same nights that Sherry was, different Kroger, but like, the normal row of checkout, and then there's an aisle, and then a row of groceries, like a bunch of shelves, and then another big aisle. They kind of stagger those big aisles as you work your way back. Mm-hmm. So the checkout line was past the first aisle, past the first whole row of shelves, like all the chips and junk food, and back to the next aisle, getting close to the second half of the store. And so a little bit of that observation as I'm just kind of watching different people's reactions to the first night of this, like people kind of hoarding a little bit, and just watching the reactions. So I kind of pull my cart up, and I'm at the end of the back of the chip aisle, basically halfway through the store, and that's where the line ends for one checkout lane. Yeah. So I'm kind of halfway back through the store, and these people in front of me are talking, and I said, I'm really sorry, I don't want to interrupt, I just want to make sure this is actually the line. And they all kind of go, oh yeah, this is the line. I said, well, hi friends, we're gonna have some time to get to know one another. But here we are, like, me and this lady in front of me are just having a great chat about all the different kinds of chips, and she's like, man, this aisle sold me on all the chips, and here I am. And like, there was not one negative person that I experienced from like that aisle all the way through the store. And I don't know how long I was in line, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that. But like, the worst reaction I would see is like, is this real? Like, these checkout lines? But everyone else was just, trying to just, this is what we got to do. And so.
Hey guys. We've switched orientations on your Brady Bunch screens. We're experimenting with some free software, and they only allow us to go up to a certain amount of time. So we started again. So this is the second half of episode 43 of From the Middle. And you didn't notice anything different, but we did on our end. So I didn't even have to say all of that. We're learning. Dylan was just telling us about how kind people can be in the grocery store lines. And it is nice during these crazy times to see glimmers of hope and to give you faith in human beings. There are also some crazy people out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it's the kind of crazy isn't so much the homicidal crazy. There's the crazy, as in the I need toilet paper to last me for the next 5 years. There's that crazy that's going on.
Have you figured out why? I have one.
It's a psychology thing. Like
one theory.
People attach it could be a different item every time there's any kind of threat like this. It just starts with a person A. And it can just start in a grocery store, and then the person next to them is like, "Oh, that's a good idea," and then and because everybody's panicked, and then they can attach like some kind of realm of control over whether or not they have toilet paper, so they start buying it. You mix that with the grocery store psychology of when there's a big giant like 4-foot thing of toilet paper missing from a shelf, and the shelf looks emptier than it relatively is, if that makes sense.
So it just takes one.
Yeah, so 2 or 3 people taking one pack of toilet paper each at the same time from a group makes everybody else come by and look like, whoa, the toilet paper's almost gone, because they see a lot of empty shelf space. And so now you start this whole psychology thing of, I can control this, I need to get this, everybody else is buying this. And then it goes all the way down the line to, am I going to be able to buy any in 3 weeks when I need it? So psychology is the short answer to that question.
Cool. I was just thinking, like, people can wipe and blow their nose with it if they get sick. Was like
that too.
Theory.
That too.
Just throwing that out there. I don't know if that's helpful, but
I hate that our president has to say, the retailers have asked me to tell you to stop buying the way that you're buying. Please only buy what you need. Our supply chains are still functioning. Don't buy for 6 months. Buy for a couple weeks.
Like you normally do.
Like the dog-eat-dogness of some of people's reactions is concerning.
Well, right, and the issue there is the people in panic mode kind of trigger the reasonable people to think, well,
am I missing something?
I probably should go get some stuff. Like,
yeah,
I don't ever eat soup, but I probably need a few cans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just to get, so like my first trip to the store, the day I went home from work before my time of work from home, was like basically a normal grocery trip with maybe a small handful of extra items in it. Like, it was like, I'm going to get slightly more than a normal grocery trip, but not go crazy. Mm-hmm. Because I was even being nudged into like panic mode just so slightly. And I thought, this is wild, man. I just need to get the normal stuff. Like, yeah. It's like,
I've turned that way about one thing, and that's bread flour. Because anybody who knows this podcast knows that like I make our family's bread. I've been doing that long before COVID-19 was a thing, and so now like I'm at a point now where I can make probably 4, maybe 5 more loaves of bread. And when you make bread at home, like if you're familiar with a normal loaf pan that you would have in your house, that's all I'm using. So they're not like they're like maybe a half or 2/3 maybe of the size of a normal cheap loaf of bread that you would buy at the store. So that's probably more like 2 or 3 or so loaves of bread that I have left to be able to make. And I can't buy bread flour. And the problem with the bread flour thing is that like that supply chain is not uh, it's not as big. It's not as important as the regular
Toilet
pre-made,
paper.
as big as the pre-made bread supply chain.
Yeah.
So, in other words, grocery stores don't have a whole lot of back stock of bread flour. The manufacturers are running out of their bread flour because, like in this time, like so everyone who's afraid of buying bread, and now I see the Facebook posts of, "Hey, look, I tried this bread flour thing. I feel like I'm really roughing it, blah blah blah," and stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, please! I've been making bread for my family for how long? And it's now because of people like you that I can't make bread for my own family." So every time that myself or the wife go anywhere, we look for bread flour, and we have not been able to find it this whole time. So we're actually going to have to go back to buying the bread that all of those people would rather be buying.
Honestly,
I'd be happy just to get the flour.
You could probably ask on social media, and I would guess, if I had to, at least 50% of people who bought bread flour have already given up on trying to make it. And they would probably donate it to you. They'd be like, "Hey, you know that bread flour that you bought that you thought you were feeling all like, I learned on Pinterest how to make bread, and now you're excited, and then you gave up after the first time. Could I buy that from you at retail? And we can call this a day."
Yeah. Listen, no, I'm not impressed by your little house on the prairie dream here of making your own bread. All right. There are people such as myself who actually do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, okay. We don't need you to gatekeep making bread. We just need you to, all right? We just need you to buy it from the people who are going to throw it away because they don't know what to do with it now.
If you have bread flour, let me know. I'll take it.
Yeah, and if you're a regular listener, I'm sure you were also concerned about his yogurt and how the yogurt is going with the new fridge that was broken temporarily.
Oh yeah, no, yogurt's going fine. Fridge is working like a champ.
Good.
Milk, oddly enough, has not been a problem for us. We've been able to get all the milk we need.
Yeah.
So only now it's rationed, and so for us, it's like every few days we need to get more milk because we buy them in half-gallon cartons because, again, the plastic thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
And and Kroger is limiting us to 3 milk products per trip.
Really?
So I can get a gallon and a half of milk at a time. And I drink a glass of milk every day. All of our kids, they drink two cups of milk per day.
Joaquin Phoenix would not be happy to hear this.
I know, whatever. Yeah. I reminded of all the people who were like, you know what? Baby cows stop drinking cow's milk when they're adults. We're not baby cows. Why are we all drinking milk? Well, you know what else? We made computers, so we're doing a few things right.
Let's talk just for a second. And I know I keep hedging, but this comedy and gallows humor is part of how we deal. So let's talk about some of the social media / celebrity reaction. Because I heard about, and a couple podcasters have talked about this, the whole Gal Gadot Imagine thing with all the celebrities. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Gal Gadot starts singing. Are you upset that we're going here, or it's cringy, the topic?
The topic is a little cringy.
So Gal Gadot starts singing Imagine.
I'm looking forward to it.
She sings like one line of Imagine. And then Kristen Wiig sings the next line. And it goes from celebrity to celebrity, and this goes viral. This was like 5 days in. They're like, "Hey guys, I know this is hard, but we just got to stick together. And it's songs like this and I'm like, it's been 5 days. It's been 5 days.
Yeah.
And the people who are like going stir crazy and they're bored already, I'm like, read a book.
Yeah. My initial reaction when I thought that was the optics of how out of touch they look, that they're complaining from presumably their multi-million-dollar mansions 5 days into having to be forced to sit at home and like rallying the troops. I'm like, there are literally people that still have to go to work because they don't have enough money to buy food, and you get 10 HelloFresh orders delivered to your house a week.
Yeah.
It felt like it just was cringy because I'm like, it would have been a much nicer gesture if it wasn't celebrities doing it. And I'm not saying, because I think it was Russell Brand or somebody made the comment, and he's gone from being a comedic actor to, I think in his mind, maybe even a philosopher. And I'm not being critical when I say that. I think in his mind, that's maybe where he is. But he made that comment once about, when I was poor and wanted to talk about wealth inequality, they told me to, I was just bitter. And now that I'm wealthy, if I want to talk about wealth inequality, they tell me that I'm a hypocrite. I'm starting to think they just don't want to talk about wealth inequality. And so he's made a comment like that before. And so I just think
there's a lot of people in between those two, though. But anyway.
Right. Yeah. So, but like, I kind of get that in some ways it's danged if you do, danged if you don't, if you're a celebrity trying to do something like that. But it just felt really cringy, not only a couple days in, but like there's actual people like really, really struggling, and you're doing this because you're bored.
So David Spade called out the folly in that. And so he's been doing these like just from his basement, like little one-liner jokes. And he started the one video and he goes, I don't know. I mean, I have some advice for all of you who say you have cabin fever. He's like, just buy a bigger house. Like, I have a really big house and I can just go in different rooms and it feels like a whole new place.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Like, don't be telling people to get over their cabin fever. If so far in this past week and a half, you haven't had enough time to visit every room in your house.
Yeah.
The other thing is that's so funny about all this is all the celebrities or businesses that are emailing you, like you bought something from them 10 years ago, and they're like, hey, we just wanted to let you know we're taking this coronavirus thing very seriously. Or the celebrities that are like, we know you guys have probably been wondering what we've been up to. No, we haven't. It's not even been a full week yet.
All right, Circuit City. I'm not concerned with how you're going to respond to the coronavirus. Okay? Stanchions out front, curbside pickup, don't care. But now I know I need to unsubscribe from your emails and that you still had my email in your list.
Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you for the reminder.
Man, it's just like, it's
comical. Well, some of the PR stuff. I mean, not all of it is. I mean, some of it can be good, but kind of not really by accident. But there's a bar around us that so Amy and I, we were making a list of restaurants that are local to where we live, and just saying, look, these are the places that we want to support. That if carryout's an option, we're going to use them, or if carryout's not an option, then once all of this is over, this is where our money's going to go for a while. And one of those places that was on our list was a bar and grill, a local bar and grill, and my wife, being who she is in the science field, a chemist. And so she's hearing all of the stuff. She's seeing and understanding all the things that the doctors and leaders are trying to do, and gets it and is behind it. And so local bar, like the night before that they were supposed to shut down in the state of Ohio, they decide to not only just kind of shut down, but they hold a big party instead and advertise it, and a lot of people show up. And then and there, it was just we're like, nope. Nope, we're not getting food from you. I mean, we'll support you once everything is said and done, but you just invited a whole lot of people into your building. I'm not going to have you make my food for a while.
Yeah.
Is that like a weird thing for you as we talk? Like, you hear people continue to support your local restaurants and I super want to do that, but then I'm also like, I don't know.
So
When it all comes down to your bottom line, I don't know how concerned you are about your sanitary setup.
It
yes.
depends on the restaurant, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I told you I took that drive Sunday just to get out of the house and feel the sun on my face and whatever. I had self-quarantined for 9 days. I go to Starbucks. Sorry, Kendall, but a Starbucks just sounded really good. So I get 2 drinks and I bring them home and I start sipping and I'm like, they grabbed the top of the cup.
Yeah.
With ungloved hands, and what if I just put the Coronas in me after 9 days of self-quarantining? I just undid.
And that's the thing. Like, you can't. You have to be reasonable with that, and realize that there is zero approach that's going to be 100%.
Which makes me think once somebody finally says, sorry to cut you off. Once somebody finally says, okay, guys, it's good to go back outside, I imagine there'll be a whole contingency of people that are like, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this comes in waves, not to be alarmist, but that's how all of these other things have gone throughout history. It comes in waves. And with the Spanish flu, for example, the second wave was way worse than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be this whole contingency of people that are like, I know I'm fine. Y'all are not fine. I'm not ready to go back where y'all are. And it's been lingering on surfaces for 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
Well, seems to think people are going to be like, party, let's go to sporting events and hang out again. And I'm like,
I think somewhere in between that, but no. So it's so you can worry about what the person touched. First of all, they had to have it on their hands, in order for that to even matter. One of the things that we think we know about this virus is that it's spread predominantly airborne, and that we don't have any confirmed cases that have come to a conclusion of this was this is a surface contamination thing. We don't know of any case where because they keep investigating these cases when somebody tests positive and they try to figure out how they got it.
Yeah.
And they don't have any cases where the conclusion was there's a contaminated surface, they touched it and got it that way.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it can't happen. As a matter of fact, science is telling us, yes, it can happen that way. It doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. I mean, there's a lot of cases that just end with a question mark.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure that a percentage of those question marks are surface contamination. But so that person would have had to have come into contact probably relatively close to the time that you came into contact with them. They would have had to have not washed their hands or sanitized or anything in between. And then even if they were wearing gloves and you're worried about that, then the question is, okay, are they changing those gloves every customer?
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I hate that I'm even thinking about that.
Exactly. So did somebody, how long ago did somebody touch this thing? And, I mean, you buy your milk at the store.
Yeah.
And you think, how long ago did somebody with the virus touch it? And if you worry about that stuff too much, then you end up going crazy. And you can't do that. You have to realize that nothing is going to be 100%. We're not about complete mitigation. We're about suppression to the point that it goes away.
Yeah.
Is the point. And that's how we have to live. Like, it means wash your hands. It means, I know where this is going. It means don't cough on each other. There you go.
All good here, babies.
There you go.
Oh, my hand's gone. Sorry.
The Australian virus cut your hands off. Ate your hand.
Some people ate bats somewhere in China.
Yeah. I'm not even going to discuss it.
That doesn't feel accurate. I don't know about that.
Why not? That's what happened.
I don't know. It's
Speaking of bats.
It's one of those things you say at first that sounds crazy, but then you realize the world we live in, and you go, all right.
No, somebody ate a bat soup, and that's what started this whole nonsense.
A wet meat market in Wuhan. where they slaughter bats on site, like in the market as customers are walking around. And the reason why it's called coronavirus is a virus um, that's among animals, and humans typically don't get them, but every once in a while a mutation occurs and it jumps.
Yep.
And so that's what makes it a novel coronavirus. This one has things in common with bats, and we know it started in China, and we know there's in Wuhan, and we know in Wuhan there's these what are supposedly illegal meat markets, and they can get it down to that locale, and they look at that meat market and say, hey, there's bats being slaughtered here in front of consumers.
Speaking of bats. Okay. So, I didn't tell you the story?
No.
From Australia?
Oh, boy. 2 more weeks of quarantine for you, my friend.
Okay. So, I'm with my German colleague, Stefan, and he's already been to Sydney. So our first day there was a transition day. You don't want to. You take some time to acclimate to the time zone, and so we get there on an early Saturday morning, and the whole thing is like stay up as long as possible, because if you sleep that first day, you're going to basically be messed up for the whole time that you're here. So try to stay awake. So he says, go back to your room, chill for a couple hours. We've got the whole day ahead of us. And we'll go out later. So that afternoon, we go to there's a walkway toward the Sydney Opera House, and there's an upper surface level where all the tourists are making their way to the Opera House, and then there's a whole other layer below it that's a bar that opens up and goes out to the water's edge, where you can see Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House, get a table, drinks, food, live music. It's amazing. So fast forward, we were there almost every single night. We just went to this because you're right on the water, the bridge, the Opera House. You're seeing 2 of the continent's best features right there. Live music, food, people everywhere. It's awesome. So it starts to get a little dark and the sun goes down. And we're just sitting there taking it all in the breeze and the people and the conversation and the live music. And I'm like, what is that? And he goes, what? And I could tell by the wing shape that this is a bat. And it's the size of a small dog with wings. Like, it's the size of our crows or bigger.
Yeah. So it's like if the Wizard of Oz had bats instead of monkeys.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. Because I'm like, that's not a bird. Because there's lots of seagulls, but this is as big as the seagulls. So on the same level as the Opera House, just a few stair steps up, are the Royal Botanic Gardens. So I'm like, Stefan, that was a bat. He's like, that wasn't a bat. I said, Stefan, that was a bat, because it has the pointy wing thing.
Yeah.
And so I start Googling, right? The Royal Botanic Gardens are home to 20,000 flying foxes.
Now, you told us about this. I should have looked it up before, and I didn't.
They just start swarming. Now, the bushfires that they had in Australia, they were afraid that they were going to lose their flying fox population. These things are massive. Like, we have them at the Columbus Zoo, but they're all just sleeping. But they're big. They're big. And so the Botanic Gardens, so every night you would see these.
Now that's a bat. I can't even do it.
So I'm trying to explain to him why I'm blown away by this. I said, in Ohio, our bats, their wings like flutter. These were like, they were like flapping, like pterodactyls. So I keep waiting for one to like swoop down. It was amazing. I tried to capture it on video and send it to friends and family. I was like, there's just these massive bats flying around.
It's awesome.
I didn't eat any. I did eat kangaroo.
How was that?
A little gamey.
That's every meat that's not beef, chicken, or pork.
No, not true, because I've eaten lots of unique animals.
Have you?
This was served with like a slaw and apples on top, sort of some sweetness, I think, to try to cover up some of the gaminess of it. It was a
Yeah.
burger that I had. But anyway, yeah, I tried kangaroo.
That's
I had
fun.
to tell you about the bats, though. That was so crazy. I couldn't get over the flying foxes.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I didn't know if with everything going on, did you ever even think about trying to find shark diving? What was the too cold?
Yeah, so one of my bucket list things, if you haven't listened before, is to cage dive with sharks. And we found out about this gig like with very little notice.
Mm.
I think it was like a week and a half. And we had to, normally we're not even allowed to travel inside of 2 weeks internationally because the price of the flights is so expensive. Our company won't allow it. But this other part of the company really wanted us there. And so we made it happen. So to answer your question, I didn't research anything or look anything up. The water was very cold. We did take a ferry over to Manly Bay, and we sort of stumbled upon this televised world surf competition, which was pretty sweet. But as we went out in the water, we were on the beach. It was very chilly, and all the surfers were in their whatever they call those things.
Wetsuits?
Wetsuits, yeah. So no, I didn't find cage diving, but that's one of those. Next time I'm there, now that I have a little more lay of the land and know what to expect, that's something I'm going to look into.
Yeah.
It's good.
So, but it was a great trip. Sydney is a really cool city. It's very clean. Even late at night, it's like very well lit. There's live music all over. Australia doesn't really have their own cuisine, so they just sort of like our favorite spot to go for food was this German place called Munich. Mm-hmm. And we went 2 different times where there's a guy with like lederhosen playing like music and like traditional German music. And
what did your coworker have to say about it?
It's one of his favorite spots. Yeah, he loved it. He said it felt very authentic. So that's cool. He's from Cologne. Yeah, he really likes that spot. I had pork knuckle, which I didn't know was a thing. It's like the ham hock, basically, part of the pig. And the outside is super, super, super crispy. Like you can barely cut through it with a fork and knife. Like it's really, really crispy, hard outer edge. And then the inside is this juicy, tender meat. And then they just put the whole thing on like a bed of mashed potatoes. And
yeah,
so good.
Speaking of viruses from weird animal parts,
weird animal parts.
What kind of new virus do you think you brought back with your pork knuckles?
I know how both of you are going to react to this. I'm being totally serious. I'm not saying I had coronavirus, but there is a theory based on the different strains of the virus. And some people were saying, do you remember how a bunch of us in Ohio got real sick, like in early February, with a flu that none of us have experienced before? I had that. And it was all of the things that they're saying are symptoms of coronavirus. And that's the thing when we recorded the 2 episodes where I was like, I had been coughing like crazy and couldn't get that.
Yeah.
Well,
and body ache like I've never had with any flu ever. This is not a Corey likes to exaggerate 7 storytelling thing.
Yeah.
Like a crazy body ache, dry cough, headache, fatigue. And I had that a week and a half before I left for Sydney.
But those really are like, maybe it was different from anything you've ever had before, but those are flu symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Very common flu symptoms, all of those.
I like the hypothesis.
And a virus,
that means I'm good.
And a virus, like a virus, just sort of like attacks and then requires like your immune response.
Yeah.
So a virus doesn't necessarily dictate how your immune response is going to respond.
Yeah.
So you might get body aches and a fever. Another person might have other things because their immune system reacts to it differently. The virus did not dictate that.
Right. I just want to believe I'm fine, Kendall. I'm in the clear.
Well,
So
you could get one strain and then get the next strain.
maybe if you
I don't
had
need
it,
your science.
maybe if you had it before, I think if I'm hearing you right, if you had it before you went to Australia, you gave it to Tom Hanks.
Yeah. What were you doing with Rita Wilson, and does Tom Hanks know about that?
So anyways, those bats
But you
were
went
crazy.
shark diving, huh?
So those bats are crazy, y'all. Flying foxes, giant swooping bats. Bananas. All right, it's going to kick us off in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is the coronavirus episode.
This will be.
So for everyone looking for a comedic take on what's happening in the world, but they don't want to listen to COVID-19 anymore, we failed you. And this is another episode on the coronavirus.
Hey, everybody's having their coronavirus episodes. We might as well jump in the game too.
This is for
What else is there to talk about? Movie releases?
We're documenting life.
Sports?
Researchers are going to find this on the YouTube archives millennia from now, and they're going to be like, "Look, we have one more piece of evidence as to what it was like during the COVID-19 wars."
Were they idiots before the virus, or did the virus cause that?
The pre-war phase.
The pre-war
and the answer to your question, Kendall, is yes. I have to say though, just to change subjects for a little bit, if you're not following, not you, the world, if you're not following us on social media channels, you definitely should. I found a ton of indie podcasts that I've been connecting with folks, especially on Twitter. Like there's just this whole like throng of indie podcast folks that are out there. And I feel a little bad now that we did our MIDI awards and we all just picked Joe Rogan like a bunch of sheep when there's all these cool indie podcasts out there. So if you're not, and I don't say this as a plug exclusively to follow us, but if you aren't following us, at least go check out our page on Twitter and you'll see, specifically Twitter, I don't know why everyone's congregating there, you'll see a lot of other podcasts tagged. And it's a great place to ask for podcast recommendations because everyone chimes in right away. Like it's such a cool community. And so it's been fun. So if you are into podcasts and you want to find some other indie stuff that's not just, the top 20 list on Apple Podcasts, definitely check out Twitter and follow along because I've listened to ones I never would have listened to before. And I've had some great conversations with folk through messaging on Twitter. It's been a lot of fun.
There's a lot of cool people out there doing stuff.
Yeah. A lot of cool content creators, and they just a lot like us. They're having fun, and they want to share that with other people. And so
there's a lot of positive, comedic, fun, creative, enjoyable things that you could subscribe to and fill yourself with that stuff, as opposed to watching the news all day. I mean, because there's one press conference and then 24 hours of speculation of what did that mean and why did he avoid that thing, and there's a lot of other stuff you can be doing. That's right.
So check us out on Twitter. I mean, all the platforms, if you're not subscribe, follow, all that stuff, but certainly on Twitter too. And if nothing else, if you're into podcasts, like I said, go there and ask for some recommendations because you're going to get a lot of cool stuff. Tell them what you're into. Hey, I want comedy. I want true crime. I want yada, yada, yada. And you're going to get all kinds of great options from all over the world. So it's been a lot of fun as I spend a little more time on Twitter getting to know other podcasters. It's been a cool experience.
As far as we're concerned, we have a backlog of a lot of different voice messages that we're going to get to. In our 2 episodes on the middies, we didn't cover TV shows. So the 3 of us are going to be talking about our favorite TV shows of all time. And we also had a fun topic idea. I'm just going to go ahead and show our cards here, guys. Things we could never really get into. So we're going to go around the horn and talk about those things that everybody else seemed to like, but we could just never really get into.
Or even things that maybe because of your profession or your hobbies or things that you do that people kind of assume that you must be into, but you're just not. So I think that that's a fun topic. I know that I already have a good list of that going.
Awesome.
Good.
And we are still collecting your odd and funny family stories. So if you're just bored in your house with your family, next time at dinner or when you're all talking, just say, hey, what are some funny things that like are specific to our family? And send them to us. We're going to do an episode on odd and funny family stories. Things like the internet phenomenon that happened within the last year when a 22-year-old said, I just realized that not every family had a poop knife.
We
And
don't.
it took the internet by storm as people tried to figure out what is a poop knife and why did she think everybody had one. So do you have funny family stories? We'd love to hear them.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't even a plug for everyone else to share the things they couldn't get into. But if that's a more interesting topic to you than
Whatever.
funny family stories, you can also send those in, because I would be curious.
Anything.
And don't be like, you know what, I was never really into like, you know, something that like, you know, the Black Stripes. Come on. All right.
You can do better than that. You can do better than that.
Yeah. I want something that, seriously, everyone, this isn't a time to show off how artsy fartsy some people are. This is like, seriously, like things that everyone was into that you're like, no, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I feel like if you use the word existential, you've gotten too artsy fartsy.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, you're not our audience.
I've never gotten into the existentialism of the line fad.
And let us know how you're all doing with your coronas and your quarantines. How y'all feeling? Let us know how you're, what you're doing, what books you're reading, what movies you're watching, how your family is. We care. What are you doing over there with your?
I'm waving by with my finger. It's time to go.
It's time to go. Their little thing is telling us in less than a minute, and I don't know how long ago that was.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, thanks for listening. Hopefully this brought you a little bit of joy. And you know, Dylan's faces. And you now know how we're all doing. We love you guys. Thanks for listening. This has been From the Middle at From the Mid Pod on all of the things. Bye.
See ya.